Yeah, welcome to our March GDTA Spotlight session. And I'm really happy to do this first time early in the morning. Excuse me. Early in the morning, that's my morning cough, In the afternoon, it would not be there. So I'm really happy that we can do this and give it a try in the early morning to make it more possible and easier for our friends on the eastern part in especially in Australia and also in India and China to join. And for those of you who are here first time, GDTA, the Global Design Thinking Alliance, is a network of now 36 organizations dealing with design thinking uh, since a lot of time now in 23 countries. And we try to gather every month for our GDTA Spotlight session where usually one of our members, but also sometimes external guests are sharing about their activities. And we try to get the community together and open it up. The GDTA Spotlight is an open access. It's not limited to the members, but usually we have lots of members around the globe popping up and do this usually in the afternoon, European time. But today, since we have a special guest from Australia, Jochen Schweitzer, we do this in the early morning to make it easier to access also for others. And coming to our speakers, we were planning to have 3 speakers. That was the recommendation from Jochen. And Jochen, we know each other since lots of years, actually, since your time in Germany. And Jochen Schweitzer, professor at UTS Business School in Sydney now. He used to be one of the founding members of the GDTA 7 years ago with his activities. And I'm really happy that you are now sharing together with Sihem BenMahmoud-Jouini. She is actually luckily in Europe, in the European time zone. She's in Paris right now. To share about your book you were writing recently and publishing recently, the book about transform with design, creating new innovation capabilities with design thinking. And I've had a little glance already on the slides in the morning and expect heavy duty stuff actually. And I'm really happy that at least 2 of you, Jochen and Sihem, are joining today. It was too cumbersome to have the third author also involved, Sebastian Fixon, because he was in the United States. That would have been a big trouble to have all of you awake at the same time. So I'm really happy to have 2 professors today here to join. Jochen Schweitzer from the UTS Business School in Sydney. Actually, Sydney is a technical university, but Jochen, you are at the business part of the university and dealing with design thinking since lots of years. And as I learned, the university is Australia's leading young university. I think University of Potsdam is also competing with the young universities. But I think you are the younger, in Australia, the Sydney University. And Professor Sihem Jouini, is your last name. You are in Paris at one of the best known business and management universities. It is actually in France, it's the leading business school at the HEC, École des Hautes Études Commerciales in Paris. A little bit of French, but you can use more French here. You're open to do that. Actually, since we don't have a member in France yet, we were discussing a lot with the D School in Paris some years ago, but then there's new leadership. So let's discuss later about membership. at the GDTA. So, but first, now the stage is yours. And as I learned, Jochen will open the stage and start, and then hand over to Sihem. I'm looking forward to you, to your talk, and to your learnings. And please welcome with a big applause, Jochen Schweitzer and Sihem BenMahmoud-Jouini.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Oh, it's really nice to be here this morning. Let me just get organized here on my screen. And two things to say. One is, when you work in Australia, you don't even get to have many other Jochens in a call. So I really appreciate the other Jochen in the call. I'm usually the only one. So welcome, mate. It's this is all about us. And the other thing that I noticed is a few familiar faces. So that's great. I've been at a D school in Potsdam. I think it was 2011, 2012 for a short while, and so I really remember that time very fondly. Okay, so welcome to this talk. Also from me, a welcome from the sun setting in Sydney, and where Sihem is joining you from a morning dawn in Paris. I would like to acknowledge country. So I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you today from the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And the Gadigal people have cared for this country and for their community, land and waters for thousands of years, based on their deep knowledge of this country. And I pay my respect to their ancestors, their elders, and acknowledge them as the first people of this land. What we're going to do today, so we're going to have myself and Uli, thank you very much for introducing us so kindly as presenters today, and we want to talk about this recent book project that we've been coming together for. We'll tell you the story of how this book came together or came about, and some of the key findings and outcomes of having analyzed and looked at a whole bunch of cases of design thinking implementations around the world. So between Sihem and myself, we'll be presenting today. Sebastian can't be here today, obviously, as Uli already mentioned, because he's East Coast USA, and he's going to be sleeping tight at the moment, we hope. Okay. What we would like to do is, what I like to do, and Sihem as well, is to talk a little bit about our design thinking journey. And as I mentioned, this probably started a bit before I was visiting at Potsdam University at the D school there in 2011 and 12, noticing that in my teaching then at the business school here in Sydney, I was lacking a method for innovation, more in a strategic context rather than in a product or service development context. So it was then when I sort of looked for what's out there, and design thinking came my way, and ever since I've been using it. But I also started to divert or direct my research interest into that direction, and first starting really with a book, like a practice guide to do how do you do this stuff. And at the time there wasn't as many books of this kind around as there are today. But what we did then was sort of putting together a bit of a handbook of how to use the tools and processes and mindsets of design thinking, mostly as a guide for our students that we used in our teaching here at UTS in Sydney. And my research interest then sort of went much more into the direction of the mindset, and together with my co-authors here, Lars and Leanne, we published a piece on the design thinking mindset, which has been picked up quite a bit over the years, and there's a whole range of research now going looking much more into the non-procedural, the non-phases, the non-tools kind of understanding around design thinking. I also ventured into understanding design artifacts, so the things that are being produced in the process of design thinking, and published something on that in 2019. Later then, we also looked at how design thinking can be used in education. So this is a Springer book publication here around developing, again, the design thinking mindset. I increasingly got interested in how this is being used in the organizational context. So here was a publication that we published in 2021. in fact, around or using the same data that we used for the book that we're presenting today about ambidexterity. So how organizations can do both, can be innovative in incremental innovation, but also do radical types of innovation using design thinking. And I'm saying this because increasingly over the years, I've realized that design and design thinking has found its way into strategy work. So I've been publishing a strategy textbook for years now. We're at the fourth edition now. And whenever we rewrite the edition, I realize that the role of design in strategy formulation and implementation is increasing. So that's a really interesting area for me, and one that I currently focus on in my research, really defining what is the role of design in strategy, doing this with PhD student Leanne Sobel and the supervisory team, including Natalia Nikolova and Lindsay Asquith. So really, that's a bit of a background about how I got into design thinking and how it has influenced my research and my writing. And I'm just going to hand over to Sihem to tell you her story of how this was for her.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jochen. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for really for having us. So actually, I have joined HEC almost 20 years ago as a professor in project management and as a director of a master in project management. And I have a practice previously, before having a PhD in management, I had a practice of project management as an engineer, actually. So I'm coming to design from project management. And progressively, so I used to, being in project management, I used to cross-functionality, transversality, and progressively, I got interested more and more in a specific type of project, which is about innovation and developing innovative project management and innovative offers. And another, on top of transversality and cross-functionality, what is important in this type of project is the ideas, the rapid prototyping, being obsessed by the users. And this is how I became interested progressively in design and in design thinking, because this user centricity, this process, so I'm used to the process, but the rapid prototyping, the exploration part, the origin of ideas, the creativity is something that I felt I need to add to project management. So that's why progressively I brought I brought courses about design in HEC, and I built courses and electives mixing students from my business school with engineering school, which is not far, and a design school, which is quite far, but we try to have to build a course where we make these people work together on prototyping and working on mock-ups and thinking but with their hand, which is not at all natural for business people and mainly. So my publication followed this teaching journey. It's as well a teaching journey as well as a research journey. So I brought progressively design teaching in several levels in the master, but as well in the MBA, executive education, and with these and with this practice and very hands-on practice. And my research followed that. So first publication was about what design can bring to project management, and then it was a focus on one case, which is how a company can adopt design, and we will speak about it later. A company that is more used to project management, how they can adopt design. And the third publication is about the power of artifacts, the power of prototypes in the creativity process, because this is what struck me at the beginning. And then so progressively I worked more and more with company and with my students, and I supervise PhD students as well in company that adopt design. And then with Lisa Karlgren, that perhaps some of you know, we were interested in what are the struggles, what are the conflicts, why it doesn't work usually, and when it works, what are the key success factors of that, and of course, culture plays a very, very high and important role. So we got interested in the cultural part of design. What could be a signature, a cultural signature of design thinking that can conflict with the culture of the company that is adopting it. So we worked on many cases trying to do this, and as well, speaking about the power of design, what can design bring to project management. I as well, so I belong to these two communities, as you understand, and the community of complex project management, not only project management, but complex project with a lot of uncertainty, and their design obviously can help a lot because it helps to address this complex problem, so how it can complement and enrich complex project management. And my last research and my last paper that I published recently in Journal of Product Innovation Management, thank you, Jochen, is about so it's about a model, and I'm very happy to show it here. It's what will appear here. It's how can established company that are not used to the design build design as a dynamic capability of innovation, and how they can add design to the other capacity of innovation they have in order to have a wide tools and approaches and mindset in order to renew their innovation capacities. And this is the last model we had, and we are currently with my previous PhD students. Now she's putting design in insurance company, how we can test and expand this model in other company in order to see how it can help and how it can prevent the conflicts and the problem when they happen. So this is this journey. It's quite a long journey. It's almost 10 years now. So I have almost 20 years of experience in teaching and research, and my last 10 years were completely dedicated to design by my teaching and my research as well. As you have seen, perhaps I teach innovation and entrepreneurship, which is normal, and that's why perhaps I'm of course interested in design. So thank you, Jochen, for helping.
Nice to see Sihem. And in a way, I'm like an Australian version of you, I think.
Yeah, that's why we met in this book.
That's right. So look, so let me just introduce the 17 co-authors that contributed to this book. And so we have Matt Templeton here, Molly Massaferro, Sabine Gourmand, Julian Deschamps, Wendy Kasselman, Christy Suber, Lisa Karlgren, David Dunn, Natalia Nikolova, Christine Gilroy, Katja Burki, Didier Boulet, Virginia Hamilton, Aaron Stienstra, Amber Schleunig, Veronica Vela, and Jevin Miller. So the book project really drew on the experience of all these wonderful people who who are either also sort of career academics like Bira, or actual design thinking implementer and corporate innovation managers in their organizations, who had an interest in documenting the experiences that they had, or the journey that they had within their organizations. So the organizations that we cover in the book in sort of detail are Mirvac, which is an Australian property development company, and Blue Shield Blue Cross is a US health insurance company, the US Department of Labor, obviously a government organization, large one in the US, Thales, which is the French, global French aeronautical defense and security company, MindLab, no longer operating under that name, but that's the government or public service organization in Denmark that we had in the sample here as well. Danone, the French food manufacturer. Intuit, which is the US multinational software company specializing in financial software. Another US department, the Department of Veteran Affairs, which is providing lifelong healthcare service to US veterans. Swisscom, the main Swiss telco organization, 51% owned by the Swiss government, and then Casa Permanente, a US healthcare organization. So a real colorful bunch of organizations. What they all are, they're all mostly large organizations. So the smallest one in here are probably MindLab, if you like, and Mervak. All the other organizations are large corporate organizations with plenty of staff, various business units operating, many of them globally or across really big countries like the US. So these 10 cases made 10 chapters of our book, and I won't go into detail here, just to show you quickly how the book is structured. We are basically writing an experiential case study description here for each of those case studies with those co-authors. The question really is why we wanted to write something like this, and because there's, I think, case studies around, but we really wanted to get into an authentic description of what happens when organizations try to implement design thinking to drive innovation and innovation success. While we generally know, and I'm sure you're all very aware of that, design thinking is popular, it's still very hard to implement. Often it conflicts with organizational cultures, it calls for a new mindset. So really what we're hoping to do is not, or what we hope to do is not to describe best practice, because that's really hard to find, but rather than best practice, we wanted to tell the stories of implementation. So that would include the failures and the things that went wrong. And what we've seen across all these cases is that they were all journeys, and things worked and some things didn't work. There wasn't a straight line, as it is with creating and implementing something new and implementing change within organizations. But we really wanted to document that, including some of the nuances, how decisions were made and what the moves were that the organization went to implement design thinking. I also would like to acknowledge the story of how this book came about, because, and these might be familiar people to some of you, particularly in Germany or in Berlin, Ingo Raut and Jan Schmiedgen were the great-grandfathers of this book, really. The idea came about at a Design Thinking Exchange conference. I think it was in the US. I was not there myself. Nor were you, Sihem, but
no, neither me.
There.
No, yeah.
But I think it was there where Ingo and Jan and all the other participants realized that the questions that people are asking about how to implement design thinking seem to be always the same. Always about how do we as a transformation team get the buy-in from the management and the rest of the organization, or how can we change the mindset or the culture of the organizations, or how do we best close the gap between design thinking efforts and early stage product development, or how do we respectfully address and include middle managers? So these were the questions, and there weren't really good answers around to how to address those questions. So many of the authors of this book now are actually attendees of that conference. I think it must have been in 2015 or something, or 2016. It was quite early, and decided, well, let's write a book. And then a lot of things happened, obviously. So it got started, a publisher was found, and but in the meantime, Ingo and Jan moved on and looked for others to lead this project. And this is how it fell into the lap of Sebastian, Sihem, and myself, who then decided to come together and see if we can get it over the line, which turned out to be a really long, far away line. I think it took about 4.5 years, including COVID and everything, to get to this point. But we got there in the end, and I think today we're really happy that we did this. Just quickly, maybe again, how we were motivated to write this book. We wanted to capture all aspects of design thinking implementations, not just dwell and report and describe processes and phases and tools, but really get into the mindsets, the decisions, and what we call the managerial moves. Which decisions were taken and how were they taken to steer the implementation or the innovation initiative in a certain direction? That often had a lot to do with the political or cultural environment in organizations. In the end, we believe that while people in organizations adopt phases and learn tools quickly, it's the mindset that ultimately helps achieve innovation objectives at a deeper level. So this is what motivated our book. Sihem, I think you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, perhaps. Actually, yes, indeed. It's mainly about implementation, and it's about story of implementation. So this is exactly what makes this book different, because we have cases that you all know. I mean, it's a lot. So we have cases where design has been there for years. I think the youngest case, it is 5 or 6 years and above. So the idea is not having the enthusiasm of the beginning and launching it and having a team, etc. at the beginning, but how can we make it or not endure and stay in the company, and how what are the ups and downs and how to manage this. So this is about, as Jochen said, stories of implementation, and this is exactly what makes the book different. It's about these ups and downs, these stops. I should not say failure, but because sometimes it's temporary stops, and it goes again, and we will mention many examples of that later on. So this is the first thing, and building on that, this type of story can be read by several profiles. It can be used by practitioners for sure, because they want to learn and be influenced and inspired by other story, and consultant as well, because they accompany this. But it can be used as well by researchers and educators, because they can use them as case studies in order to, and it's not only a case study of launching, but making it happen, and why, and what are the key success factors and the problems for it to stay. So there are the practitioner part, because each chapters actually is written by someone from the company, and more and some academic with an academic lens, if I may say. So they are co-authorship for all the chapters, and we have this dual perspective. And this makes this dual co-authorship opens a wide audience for people to read it. It can be read at different each chapter can be read at different levels. Okay, so if you want to read the book, you have actually a reduction, I think. We managed to have that with the editor. We have 30% reduction for the audience of today. I think you can scan the QR code, I guess, Jochen.
We'll come back to this later, so we'll share it with everyone. I'm just looking at the time as well, and I think we have to get going a little bit. So the 10 cases that could be more different to him.
Exactly. So as Jochen presented it previously, he mentioned and named every company. You have seen that it goes from healthcare to defense and aeronautics. It goes from food to software and telco. It goes so it's quite wide from the subject. It's quite wide from the place in the world as well. And building on that, we have tried to write chapters, as I said, with people from the company, and trying to find the genius part of each case, actually. Okay, so and we can go through the cases. So at the beginning it was mainly about health, and we have many about. I will not go in too much detail here, because I see that time is running, especially that we will bring these examples when we want to share with you the lessons that we have managed to collect from these cases. Okay, so you see here we try to enter each chapter by a question, by a trigger, by an insight that makes that journey specific, and that's what makes the diversity and the value of these. Building on that, we tried to retain lessons that we will share with you. So this is the behind the screen thing. We don't want to bother you with this, but this is what we had to do. We had to work with this big table with 10 cases, 10 columns, which quite big table, and we try to find the main elements, what is salient, what is common, what is specific. And this is our quite traditional approach in research, and our research design, as you understand, is multi-case research, and we try to compare and to contrast with different lenses in order to reach the lessons that we want to share with you as soon as possible, because time is flying. So let's proceed, perhaps. So
quickly about maybe, so this is the question underlying our inquiry was, what are the management actions that help an organization successfully engage with design thinking? So our approach was to really look at decisions and moves. We asked our authors to describe how things were decided and how decisions were made. We looked also at the impact and the progress of how these decisions and those moves then during the implementation turned out, and then the adjustments that organizations were making. Which included several rounds of coding and clustering, and from that 7 lessons emerged, and that's what we wanted to get to, but not without telling you a little bit about the process that we used to get there. So 7 lessons, and I think these 7 lessons don't necessarily come as a surprise to you. I would think that much of this is not something that would be new, yet we feel that across all these cases that we analyzed, those were the important things that one needs to consider when it comes to implementing design thinking for innovation in organizations. So lesson number 1 is about building the business case top down, which really is about getting this top leadership support at the very beginning and ensuring that the necessary resourcing for innovation activities is in place. Often this involves nominating a sponsor or a champion within the organization, and then also to find influencers around the organization or in other parts of the organization that you would engage with to partner with. So in the case of Milvac, for example, it was so that a new CEO had joined the organization who brought the ideas or a new innovation agenda to the organization with her, and convinced the top leadership team, the executives of the organization, to fund and support first moderate funding for a central innovation unit and a manager. That was the beginning there. The CEO was a key, but it was also key then that another member of the top management team was appointed, and in this case it fell into the HR and culture department of the organization, and then who then worked with at Milvac 3 business units to sort of start and progress their work around design thinking. Sihem, how was it?
And speaking, yeah, actually I would use Kaiser Permanente to contrast that. Speaking, meaning in order to build on the importance of the support of the leadership, Kaiser Permanente, after 7 years of implementation and adoption, and everybody thought that it was there, it's they won. Actually, 7 years after, there was a change in the leadership, and after, because of I mean, we are never sure that it is the only reason, but the lack of support of the new leadership was one of the problem, and that make the new journey of implementation, even though they thought that it is there, it is integrated in the practice, etc. So it is never completely there, and the support of the leadership is usually important, and we have seen that as well in Intuit. It fades after a few years because of the lack of the support of the leadership. So the leadership is crucial. So the second lesson that we want to share with you is the importance of leveraging external stakeholders and as well as resources. In order to move the things inside the company, we need support from outside. So it can be from consultants, and it has been very common in many cases. Consultants play a huge role in order to bring that, to support that, until someone in the company takes the ownership, a champion or a team take the ownership and then make it exist. And so this is very important, to have this external, internal thing, and having and communicating towards the leadership and bringing the external somehow I convince the leadership about the value of design. So we have seen that in Swisscom and Milvac, and I will come back to Kaiser Permanente with this.
Yeah, same. So it's at Mirvak again. It was in fact a consulting company that helped to get things going. It was used to train and build capability within the organization. But after about a year, I think, when that capability was built, Mirvak decided that they could go alone from there on. And no more consultants and set a foot into the organization. But on the other hand, Swisscom is another case. Consultants came later into the game at a point where more capability and more leverage had to be built up quickly. So really, the consultants were there to accelerate building capability around the organization.
And again, with Kaiser Permanente, I mean, it's a very famous case. We all know about it. And there was a lot of media coverage. And the media coverage helped a lot because they feature successes and praises innovation outcomes. And it helped to legitimize the work internally. When as I mentioned previously, there were some downsides, some down in the energy and the adoption. The media coverage plays a huge role in order to revive that. So, third lesson. Can you share that with us, Jochen?
That would be me, yeah. So this one is around building momentum and culture from the bottom up. So what we found across the cases is that a lot of momentum came from backing smaller groups of facilitators and coaches that promote innovation methods within the organization. Sometimes the initiative started from there, from those, but often this was the mechanism that was most effective for organizations to get things going and to build an innovation culture. Groups of facilitators that were trained in human-centered design methods or design thinking. This then often needed support through incentives. So incentive structures would basically there weren't reward incentive structures, but they were mostly around recognition. But some incentive structure was in place, and that was really important for these small groups of facilitators to be acknowledged for the work that they did and how it contributed to an outcome. Another element really here was to accelerate momentum, get momentum, is to provide freedom to experiment and possibly fail. So the whole idea, which is not new to you, I know, about allowing failure to happen, but really that was key in getting things going and building a culture that would support that. And another aspect of this building momentum was really to connect with middle management in these organizations.
So in order to illustrate that, actually, Thales is a very interesting case from that perspective, because it's typically the initiative starts underdog. It was from the bottom up. It was in Thales University, very far from the research and development resources and function. As you can imagine, in a very high-tech company, it's in defense and aeronautics. If R&D have seen that initiative, it should have not been encouraged at all. So that's why it started very small, hidden, and started in a very opportunistic approach, because they started to do training, a lot of training, then facilitating workshop, and then once people have seen the opportunity and the potential by training and by the workshop, they called for the support of the design center, which is an internal consultant. They called for them to supporting them in their project. So they were not in an attitude of evangelizing, but they were in an attitude of diffusing in a very low profile, progressively through training, a small training, and then a small workshop, etc., etc. So it was completely bottom up. This is the first idea. And the second idea, which is quite strong in Thales as well, is that once they have one design center, which is one consultancy, it's a multinational company with business units everywhere. They build momentum on one project or two projects that they put forward and highlighted, and then the other business units want to have the same support for their project, And then they developed progressively design centers everywhere on a franchisee model based on the first one. So they went from, in 4 years, they went from 1 to 2, 3, then now 13 or 14 internal consultancy design centers everywhere in the multinational worldwide. So it was a bottom-up, progressive, building on momentum, and starting to build it progressively. And at Intuit we have the same thing, which is another idea here is that at Intuit it became what brings design became completely natural extension of the what people do in their everyday work. So making it as a natural extension of their practice helps. So it's about, again, this very progressive and bottom-up thing. It combined very naturally with the practice, and that's what makes it sustainable on the long run. So,
and it's interesting. Thanks, Sihem. It's interesting that, in fact, both lessons are true, right? You have to have top leadership support and build from the bottom up at the same time, and I think that's an interesting thing in itself. Sihem, this one is for you.
Yeah, the fourth message again here is about in order to make it embedded, we need to have everywhere an army of people. I mean, the company that we have studied built and trained an army of advocates everywhere in order to, and that goes through real projects. So they develop skills, as I said previously, and they use a set of tools and technique consistently everywhere in several projects in order to show the potential of the approach. It's not only about one type of innovation, it's about the mindset, it's about supporting people in several type of projects, and embedding progressively this culture and these skills. So this goes with training, and this goes with encouraging early adopters in order to adopt and to become advocates, because they have seen the value of it. And this is exactly what happened at Danone. Danone is a food and beverage company. It's a multinational company. So the user centricity is not new for them. But what was new is changing the way they manage projects, rapid prototyping, testing. So these things were new. So they need to rely on skills and tools in order to make them show the value and the potential of the approach in new project. And they made and their advocates, they managed to have advocates in several subsidiaries in different places of the world, and they adapt. They worked hand in hand with the marketing, for example, department when they want to renew a brand or to work on a new product. So it can be a renewal or a brand new innovation. They work as an allies with the marketing team in order to think about the message, about the problem, about the needs, etc. Here we are in a food company, so it's quite and the sensorial part is quite natural. So it's an extension of what they are used to use, and they bring them new tools to complement their approach. And this was very important to make the implementation succeed worldwide at different type of projects. What about Swisscom, Jochen?
Yeah, I just may add Swisscom. I think the thing worth mentioning about Swisscom in relation to this learning or lesson is that Swisscom developed their capacity in stages. So they went through quite a few structural changes of where the initiative would sit within the organization and how it was supported. And every time they scaled it up, there was a new demand for training another army of advocates. And that was interesting in that case as well. Nevertheless, a lot of training happened, and that is just a foundation, I think, to not only change culture, but to equip everyone with the right tools to do this kind of work. So I'm in the interest of time, we're gonna run through the next 3 lessons, and then we're gonna open up for Q&A. So This one is lesson 5, which is about applying new methods and tools with an open mind. And what we observed is that all the organizations had their own language over time of how they would call things. And they weren't very dogmatic about, calling it design thinking or human-centered design. They called it anything, really. And that was good because it really helped the approach to be molded into what it needed to be within the context of that organization. So the lesson from that really is to be flexible with how approaches are applied and how people may adopt them. And in some organizations, there was marrying that design thinking with agile delivery and sprints. In other organizations, it went more down into the path of Lean Six Sigma improvement methodologies were merged into it. But overall, I think it's important to be and stay flexible. Delivering quality work and leading to quick wins was something that was a success characteristics for organizations to, in the early days, to create quick wins and find those wins where design method and tools could be implemented and used to create an outcome that the organization could see, that leadership could understand, and then sort of continue their support. And then my point about mixing and matching innovation methods. Lesson 6. Sihem.
Yeah, so just I will, because we are running out of time, I will emphasize on 1 or 2 ideas in these lessons, which is there is a paradox, because we know all that design is about attitude, it's about culture, it's about mindset, and these things takes time. So it takes time to adopt it and to implement it, but in the same time, we need to have quick win, to have a tool, to have techniques, etc. So how can we balance this quick wins with the long-term perspective and the long endeavor? And the idea is to be aware about that and not be desperate when it doesn't happen easily, because this is normal. But what is very, very important is the last sentence actually in this slide, which is, yes, we need to start small to have these quick wins, etc. But we need to have and we have seen in companies that have done that they have a strategy. They have a strategy to navigate within the company, and they have a strategy and a model of growth and of diffusion of the implementation. So there is this dual perspective between short-term and long-term in order to use the tools, etc., show the value each time, and when it doesn't work, call the advocates, call the champions, etc., in order to revive it and follow the strategy, because it's a long-term perspective and endeavor, and it takes time to change the attitude and the mindset. So I just want to highlight on that.
Last lesson for the Q&A, and thanks for your attention already. This one is about measuring and communicating deliberately, and I think it sort of flows from the earlier lessons that finding means of measuring progress and success has been critical for many of these organizations to show that there was success. And we've had many conversations about what's the business case for design thinking, and I'm sure this has been discussed in this group as well many times. But there is things that can be measured, and if it's the sort of the number of engagements that you have around problem solving and so on, there's many ways of doing this. But finding those that work for the organization was critical because they provide an innovation team with a means to communicate progress and success and deliberately tell stories throughout a multitude of channels inside and outside the organization. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. So there's 7 lessons, and I would very much welcome any questions or any comments that you have. We would like to know if these lessons resonate with you, and if you have something from your experience that you would like to add and think is equally or even more important. So please join the conversation.
First of all, thank you very much, Jochen and Sihem, for very interesting 7 points out of the 10 you were having in your book. I would like to ask all of you to switch on your video again if you didn't do already, because that is an open session here and we still have 5 minutes, 8 minutes to go here. I don't see any question right now in the chat. Please feel free to raise your hand and ask questions to Jochen and Sihem. First of all, thanks a lot. I have a question. I have an immediate question because before Flavia, actually, I was asking myself because we were dealing a lot through the past 17 years with large organizations, medium-sized organizations, and especially the large organizations. When we started trying to implement design thinking from top down, bottom up, all those approaches, I always was trying to get in touch with the in-house academies, with the in-house training centers, and my question to you would be, looking at the 10 different cases, did those in-house trainings play any role? And if what was the role, and how hard was it to get them involved?
Actually, it plays a huge role for Thales. For example, it was completely the case. But in some cases, it doesn't play, the in-house doesn't play a role, and they relied on external. Consultant actually play the role of trainer, more or less. I have seen both. We have seen both. Either it starts like Thales, training makes the people understand the value and the potential, and then going from training to facilitating, etc. And then it's not only the training, but the the internal consultancy that takes the facilitation. So going from training to internal consultancy, or external consultants as well play the role of trainers. What do you think, Johan?
Well, I think yes. Not all the organizations had academies or internal training organizations, and I think that's where consultants came in a lot. But I would agree that if this exists within large organizations, like I think Thales had a university, then I think those are key in equipping staff with those capabilities. I would totally agree to that. Yeah. Flavia, please. Nice to see you.
Yeah. Hi, Jochen. Hi, Sihem. Thank you very much for all the insights. I wanted to gain a deeper insight. You talked about when the top management is changing at Kaiser Permanente. You put it as an example. What did they do to quickly fix the gap to get the new management on board?
So I think what is important is that they make the new leadership practice in order to understand the potential of the approach on their project. So this played a huge role. It was not evangelizing, but making them, they were very opportunistic, and they jumped on meeting that happened, etc. And they tried to, let's do a facilitation using the approach, and then they making them practice was one way to make them realize the value and the potential of it. And once they ignited something, because it was there but dormant in the company somehow, because it has been there, when they ignited the leadership again, it was not easy, but they can build on something that exists already. So what was lacking with the change of leadership is that the light was off. So they needed to ignite it again, actually.
I may add to that. I think another key factor I feel with leadership is often external validation. I don't recall how many of the organizations in our case selection actually where leadership did a trip to Silicon Valley sometime in the in 2021, 20 or something, to see, look, how it's done there. That was often the nucleus of starting the initiative in the first place. But external validation and hearing about other organizations having gone through this journey and being successful, I think, was another big factor for leadership teams to buy in and to sort of go along.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Julia.
Yeah, I have a question which refers to one of the points that you brought up. I forgot exactly in what slide, but basically you mentioned that there were incentives involved into keeping like teams going. Can you give a couple of examples what incentives and to what extent they worked?
So as far as I remember, and would have to go back to the details, but incentive structures were often around or would be around making the work that someone does by contributing to a design thinking initiative count in some way. And that could be just an acknowledgement. So someone in the leadership team is saying, oh, this is important work. I thank you for doing this kind of work. Incentive structures could be just that acknowledgement in the first place. There were never monetary incentives that we saw in the data where people would get paid any extra money or something or overtime. In fact, most people who engaged in this were doing it on a extra time kind of not extra paid basis because they felt passionate about that, and that's okay, I think, to some extent. But at some point, an organization has to acknowledge that this work is relevant and important work. And then put something in place so that people don't use overtime to do this kind of work, but can do it within their work. And that was often the problem or a difficult part for innovation teams to then negotiate that with business units. People who are in charge of the business and the business outcomes are not necessarily in charge of innovation outcomes. So to just change that in itself, to make businesses responsible for innovation outcomes or make it part of their KPIs, already helped to let this KPI filter down into what people would be rewarded and acknowledged for when they contribute to this kind of work. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Another thing that we have seen, which is perhaps an indirect incentive, is that they built in some company communities of practice. And recognizing this community of practice, recognizing being part of that community of practice is an incentive for people because they are on top of their work. Yes, they are doing this on top, but they belong to something that is recognized in the company as something that brings value, etc. So belonging to the community of practice and acknowledging the existence of the community of practice is something that was very important, especially in the case of Danone. It was the case. And actually, it helped a lot because many company goes through crisis, and Danone went through crisis 2 or 3 years ago, and a big reorganization, and the community stayed as it is, strong, and the organization changed. And then once the new design of the organization happened, they tried to see how they can fit in, but they tried to bond as a community in order to keep that alive when the reorganization was running, actually.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at the time right now, and we are at the 60 minutes now. And as my fear was that the people who are in Europe now, they jump to the next meeting. I would like to officially end now the GDTA spotlight session with Sihem and Jochen, would like also to announce our April session. There we'll have Jean Litka. The date is not quite fixed yet. That is why we will have Jean Litka talking about her book about experimentation and about her experiences. Somewhere it will be later in April. We'll announce that pretty soon. And I would like also to point on our conference, which will happen this year in September. You have a slide, Raika, for that as well. Our conference, the GDTA annual conference, will happen this time first at the HPI in Potsdam. And the larger topic, it's not fully decided yet. It's a working title, is Design Thinking and Artificial Intelligence. And we're dealing a lot with artificial intelligence and design thinking through the past year, I would say, or like actually a little bit longer already at the D School in Potsdam, especially at the HPI. So I'm looking forward to see all of you in September physically, and if not, also digitally at the conference, at the GDTA conference. So thanks a lot to Jochen and Sihem. Big applause for your input. And now we officially end the recording.